The first tear slid down Quinn Wallace's cheek before he even realized it. He wiped it away casually, eyes still locked on the screen as the orchestral swell hit its crescendo. The scene was simple, a father hugging his daughter at an airport after 2 years apart, but it carried the weight of 1,000 moments. He sniffed once, then again, trying to keep it down. His shoulders gave a small jerk when the second wave of emotion hit, and that's when the voice spoke. "Are you in pain, Quinn Wallace?" The voice was calm, almost gentle, but it startled him enough to make him jump in his seat. He turned his head to see the large, translucent eyes of Kal-El fixed on him. The alien's thin neck stretched slightly toward him from the opposite side of the couch, its 3 fingers holding a notepad it had been scribbling in. Its study partner, Juno, sat beside it, watching him with equal concern. "What? No, I'm fine." Kal-El tilted its head. "You are secreting fluid from your ocular glands. Is that not a pain response?" Quinn blinked. "No, not always. This is a happy scene. That's why I'm crying." Juno's hand paused mid-air, the snack cube it had been about to eat hovering inches from its mouth. "You are crying because you are pleased." "Yeah, it's a human thing. Emotions can get tangled sometimes. Joy, sadness, nostalgia, all that." Kal-El scribbled something quickly in its notebook. "We were told humans have inefficient emotional control. I did not understand until now. You emit distress signals during pleasure. I mean, not always, and not distress exactly. It's just emotional. That's the point of movies like this. They're supposed to make you feel something." Juno leaned forward. "You paid credits to experience a simulation that causes your body to react as if in distress?" "It's a subscription," Quinn said, then realized how stupid that sounded. "But yeah, basically." Kal-El gave a long blink. "Fascinating." Quinn sighed and rubbed his forehead. "Look, maybe we should take a break from the movie." Juno nodded. "I agree. There is much to review from this incident." They stood, stretching their spindly limbs, and moved toward the kitchenette area in the shared dormitory. Quinn followed them, grabbing a bottle of water from the fridge. The alien exchange program had been going on for 7 months now, and he'd volunteered as an Earth-based student liaison mostly out of curiosity. Now, he was embedded with 2 students from the Pilveran Confederacy, living in a converted University of Oregon housing unit built to accommodate both species. Kal-El tapped on its data tablet. "We must report this to Dr. Saval. She will want to update the emotional response logs." "Your reaction was unexpected. Please don't write it like I was having a breakdown over a movie," Quinn said, sipping his water. Juno looked at him. "But were you not?" "No. It was just touching." Kal-El looked at the screen again. Was the reunion not predictable from the earlier dialogue? Quinn lowered his water bottle slowly. "Predictable doesn't mean it doesn't hit hard." Juno opened a drawer and pulled out a container of nutrient paste. "Human psychology remains inconsistent." Quinn shrugged. "We're messy. That's kind of the point." Later that week, things got more complicated. Dr. Saval, a senior Pilveran researcher overseeing the exchange program, requested Quinn attend a cultural debriefing. It sounded routine, but when he arrived at the administration wing, the room had 3 additional observers, 2 from the Galactic Behavioral Institute and 1 from the Earth Cultural Council. "Quinn Wallace," Dr. Saval said, gesturing for him to sit. "We've been reviewing your emotional response during the audiovisual session on Tuesday." Quinn rubbed the back of his neck. "I figured. The incident has sparked interest due to its contradiction. You exhibited physiological signs associated with pain while stating you were experiencing joy." Quinn looked at the observers. "You brought in an entire committee over a movie cry?" Dr. Saval nodded. "Yes." The GBI representative, a tall, willowy creature named Phelim, adjusted its translator collar. "Your response has implications for our understanding of cross-emotional expression. It may affect how we interpret human behavior in diplomatic contexts." Quinn leaned forward. "Okay, but it was just a movie. It's not like I cried during treaty negotiations or something. But you could feel him said. If the emotional context was sufficient. Quinn blinked. Well, yeah, I guess. Dr. Saval folded her hands. This suggests a risk. If a human is observed crying during a meeting, how are we to discern joy from alarm? Quinn tried not to laugh. You ask. That's how communication works. Silence filled the room for a moment. Phelim tapped its data console. We request that you assist in developing a visual catalog of emotional expressions. We will need you to simulate various feelings while watching curated media. Quinn groaned. You want me to binge-watch emotional content for science? Yes. For the sake of interspecies understanding. He sighed. Fine. But I get to pick some of the movies too. 3 days later, he was sitting in a lab theater with Carell and Janu again, being filmed as he watched classic Earth films. The aliens leaned forward with rapt attention as he laughed at slapstick comedies, frowned during suspense scenes, and yes, cried again during a bittersweet ending where a mother gave her life to save her child. Again with the tears, Janu whispered. Quinn sniffed and wiped his face. It's called empathy. Carell wrote something without looking up. You experience others' fictional pain as your own? That's kind of the magic of storytelling. Janu pointed at the screen. But that individual is not real. I know that, Quinn snapped. But the feelings are. That's what matters. Carell tapped his shoulder. You are not in distress? No. I'm fine. The door opened and Dr. Saval entered, glancing at the data readouts on the wall. Your cortisol levels spiked again. Quinn rolled his eyes. Yeah, because it's sad. That's normal. She looked at the readouts longer. You also experienced elevated heart rate and shallow breathing. Because that's how we react when we're moved by something. It's not a malfunction. She sat beside him. You are certain you do not wish to abort the session? I'm certain, he said, wiping his face again. The project grew. Within weeks, Quinn found himself at the center of a new research initiative, dubbed the Emotion Media Translation Protocol. Every couple of days he sat through more films, romantic dramas, war epics, even children's animations while alien students observed and documented his reactions. He began rotating in other humans to provide diverse data points. One afternoon, a student named Gloria Keene joined him for a screening. During a scene where a dog waited years for its owner to return, both of them were crying silently. Carell looked between them. You are both in pain? Gloria shook her head. It's just a really good story. Janu frowned. The creature is stationary. Nothing is happening. Quinn whispered, that's the point. It's the waiting. The aliens conferred at length in their language. Outside the sessions, things got stranger. One morning, Quinn woke up to find that Janu had placed a small sculpture outside his room, a crude depiction of a person with tears streaming down its face. I made this, Janu said, to honor your emotional endurance. Thanks. I think. Carell arrived a moment later with a different offering, a playlist of Pilgrim music that was supposed to evoke happiness. Quinn listened, nodding along until a track hit a strange, melancholy note that tugged at his chest. This one's sad. Carell looked confused. It is a celebration anthem. It feels like loss. Carell blinked slowly. Fascinating. Later that week, Quinn got injured while moving a projector unit. He slipped, fell down 2 steps, and landed hard on his left wrist. A sharp pain shot through his arm, and he hissed, clutching it tight. Janu ran to his side. Are you crying from joy again? No, he groaned. This one's real pain. Get a nurse. At the medical center, the scans confirmed a distal radius fracture. The doctor set it in a splint and prescribed pain meds, telling him to expect 6 weeks of recovery. Carell stood beside the bed. This crying is valid pain, then? Yes, Quinn said through gritted teeth. Very valid. Dr. Saval arrived an hour later. We were informed. We've updated the emotional chart to include injury-based crying. Good, Quinn muttered. Glad I could help. You are a valuable asset to the program, she said. Quinn leaned back, exhausted. Next time, maybe let someone else fall down the stairs. Carell looked thoughtful. Would you allow us to record your healing process? Quinn closed his eyes. Only if I get to pick the next movie. It was 2 days after the wrist injury, and Quinn was lying on the common room couch with his arm in a blue sling, trying to get comfortable without jarring it. The painkillers dulled most of the ache, but any small bumps still sent a sharp pulse shooting through his forearm. He shifted again, and the blanket tucked around his legs slipped off one side. Janu, seated nearby and watching attentively, immediately leaned over to pull it back up. "You are not maintaining thermal coverage," Janu said. "This may hinder cellular regeneration." "The blanket's just for comfort," Quinn said. "Not for healing. But warmth improves tissue pliability." "Sure, but that's more for muscles. The bones set already. It just needs time." Karel entered carrying a tray with sliced fruit, though it had clearly been reorganized into groups by color and size. He set it down on the low table, careful not to brush against Quinn's injured arm. "We have reviewed over 87 hours of recovery footage," Karel said. "Your facial expressions remain inconsistent with your verbal reports." Quinn picked up a red slice with his right hand. "That's because pain doesn't always look like pain. Sometimes I'm just tired." Janu tapped his tablet. "But fatigue is a separate state from discomfort." "I know, but they mix. Especially when you're trying to sleep and your body keeps reminding you it's not okay yet." Karel looked at him. "You have not achieved full unconscious rest since the incident?" "Not once through the night. I wake up every time I roll on the wrong side." Janu's antennae twitched. "We can request a gravitational suspension pad." "No," Quinn said, chewing. "That'd feel too weird. I'd rather deal with the bed." Karel leaned forward slightly. "You willingly reject a superior recovery method to retain familiar discomfort?" "It's not about the discomfort. I just need sleep that feels normal. Otherwise, I can't relax enough to fall asleep in the first place." Janu said nothing but recorded a note with a quiet beep. Later in the afternoon, the three were scheduled to visit EarthLab's Cultural Immersion Wing for a joint empathy exercise. Quinn had been excused from physical participation but was still requested to attend and observe. A university shuttle picked them up around 4, and the ride through downtown was quiet except for Karel periodically adjusting the seat climate control and muttering about inconsistent temperature gradients. At the facility, they were ushered into a dimly lit room lined with couches and strange pods along the walls. A facilitator named Dr. Ellery, a human with a long braid and a notepad full of scribbles, greeted them. "Today's session is an experimental method for building cross-species emotional awareness," she said. "Each participant will enter a pod to experience a curated simulation from another species' perspective." Janu stepped closer to one of the pods. "Will this involve direct neural interface?" "Not quite," Dr. Ellery said. "It's a guided sensory immersion. You'll retain full awareness, but the environment will simulate emotional stimuli as close to native as possible." Karel turned to Quinn. "Will you participate?" "I'll watch from the observation room." Still not cleared for pod immersion with the arm. Janu placed a hand briefly on Quinn's shoulder. "We will report our findings." Quinn nodded and followed a technician to a small booth behind a glass wall. From there, he could see the pods light up as Karel and Janu settled in. The wall displays flickered, showing brief glimpses of what they were experiencing: a Pilveran birthright, a survival memory from a desert world, and something involving synchronized movement through zero-gravity fields. After 20 minutes, the pods opened. Karel emerged first, blinking rapidly. "That was disorienting," he said. Janu stepped out next, gripping the edge of the pod. "I believe I experienced longing. It was not comfortable." Quinn pressed a button on the intercom. "Are you okay?" "Yes," Janu said, "but I require time to recalibrate." Back in the common room that evening, Karel was quiet as he prepared tea, his hands moving more slowly than usual. Janu sat across from Quinn, who was attempting to unwrap a granola bar one-handed and failing miserably. "You require assistance," Janu said, reaching over and taking the wrapper gently. "Thanks," Quinn muttered. Karel placed the tea on the table and sat down. The simulation suggested a state of emotional vulnerability you experience regularly. Quinn took a bite of the granola bar. "Which one?" "Uncertainty. The feeling when outcomes are undefined and support is inconsistent." Janu added, "In the desert simulation, I was expected to persist despite overwhelming odds. It was very disturbing." That's what life feels like sometimes, Quinn said. You just keep going even when you don't know if things you'll get better. Carell looked at him. You find this state tolerable? Not really, but it's familiar. Janu leaned back. Why not retreat from it? Because you can't. Not always. You figure out how to live while it's happening. Silence spread out for a moment, filled only by the soft hum of the heating system kicking in. Then Carell asked, Do you consider this strength? Quinn stared at the table. I think it's just reality. Later that night, after the others had gone into their rooms, Quinn stayed up watching the ceiling fan turn slowly, casting soft shadows across the wall. His arm throbbed just enough to remind him it hadn't healed. He adjusted the sling slightly and reached for the remote with his good hand. He put on a documentary, something quiet and slow about deep-sea ecosystems. As shimmering jellyfish floated across the screen, he heard soft footsteps. Janu stood by the doorway, holding a small object wrapped in cloth. You are awake. Couldn't sleep. Janu approached and placed the object on the table. This is a comfort crystal from my home city. It vibrates slightly when warmed. We use it to soothe unease during transition phases. Quinn picked it up carefully. It was heavier than he expected, and faintly warm, like it had been held for a while. Thanks, he said. Janu hesitated. I still do not understand why you continue to expose yourself to sadness intentionally, even through film or story. Because sometimes sadness makes you feel connected, like you're part of something bigger. Janu studied his face. Even if it hurts? Maybe especially then. Janu sat beside him. When I felt longing during the simulation, I resented it. But now I wonder if suppressing it limits my comprehension of experience. Probably, Quinn said. But I get it. It's a lot. Janu looked at the screen where a cuttlefish was shifting colors. Do you believe humans are defined by resilience? Maybe. Or maybe we're just really stubborn. Janu tilted his head. There is a difference? Yeah, Quinn said softly. One's about surviving. The other's about refusing to give in. They sat in silence for a while, watching the ocean creatures drift through the blue-lit water. At some point, Janu fell asleep sitting up, his head resting lightly against the wall. Quinn didn't move. He just let the warmth of the crystal spread under his fingers while the pain in his arm ebbed into something manageable. He didn't bother turning off the TV. Quinn was already awake when the sun pushed through the blinds, casting a thin line across the ceiling. The pain was duller now, more of a pressure than a sharp jab, but the sling made everything awkward. He shuffled into the kitchenette, trying not to bump anything, and used his good hand to awkwardly grip the coffee press. He tried going without caffeine the day before, and that had been a mistake. The headache had crept up behind his eyes like a trickster with a crowbar. Janu sat at the table, holding a thin ceramic dish filled with some kind of blue paste. It didn't look like food, but Quinn had learned better than to ask. Carell stood by the window, holding a long scanner tube aimed at the potted plant they'd adopted from the campus greenhouse. You're both up early, Quinn said, pouring hot water as carefully as he could. Janu set the dish down. Today is the presentation. Quinn groaned. Carell didn't look up. You were reminded last evening. The committee expects your section by 10. I remember. I just thought maybe if I pretended I forgot, it might go away. Janu's antennae twitched. That is not how responsibilities function. Was worth a shot. Carell turned toward him. We have reviewed our segments. The behavioral summary and preliminary hypotheses are complete. Your portion remains unsubmitted. I know. I'll finish it right after coffee. You said that yesterday. That was different. I didn't have any coffee then. Janu reached across the table and pulled a small stack of notes from his satchel. We prepared supplementary data from the last immersion session. You may integrate it. Quinn took the pages with his right hand and scanned them briefly. Charts, emotional response scores, a color-coded bar graph labeled Empathy Cascade simulated. His stomach grumbled. Is that paste edible for humans? He asked, nodding at Janu's plate. Technically, but not pleasurably. Good to know. Carell sat beside Janu, folding his long limbs neatly. Your reluctance to complete the report suggests discomfort with the conclusions. Quinn sat across from them, sipping slowly. It's not that. It's just hard to explain something you don't fully understand yourself. Janu tilted his head. Are you still uncertain about your emotional responses? No, I get why I cried at the movie. I get why I didn't use the anti-gravity bed. I just don't know what to say about it that sounds scientific. Karel blinked. You were not expected to sound scientific. You are expected to contribute human insight. That's the problem. Human insight isn't neat. It's messy and full of contradictions. Janu placed a small recording device on the table. Then speak messily. We will translate. Quinn chuckled. That's very generous of you. We are invested in accuracy, Karel said. By late morning, the presentation room was filling up. The exchange program committee sat in the front row, several Pilverans, 2 GBI delegates, and Dr. Ellery from the immersion wing. A few Earth professors lingered in the back, murmuring quietly. Quinn stood next to Karel and Janu at the podium, his sling drawing a few curious glances. Karel began with a summary of their observational methodology. He used terms like emotive latency deviation and contextual ambiguity thresholds. Janu followed with a breakdown of the immersion simulation data, highlighting neural response patterns and citing specific timestamps from their recordings. Then it was Quinn's turn. He stepped forward, cleared his throat, and glanced once at his notes before setting them aside. I'm not gonna use the slides, he said. I don't think they help. Dr. Saval raised an eyebrow but said nothing. So, I've learned a lot over the past few weeks. Not just about sharing a dorm with 2 aliens who organized their socks by emotional association that is standard, Janu muttered. Right? But I've also learned that explaining human emotion to non-humans is like trying to describe the smell of rain to someone who's never had a nose. There were a few polite chuckles. Thing is, we do a lot of things that don't seem logical. We watch sad movies on purpose. We cry when we're happy. We refuse help even when we need it because we want to feel capable. Sometimes we push through discomfort just to feel a little normal. He paused, adjusting his arms slightly in the sling. And yeah, maybe we're inconsistent, but it's not randomness. It's just context. Our emotions aren't separate from our decisions. They're part of how we measure meaning. Karel leaned closer to the mic to clarify. Are you suggesting that emotional paradox is an indicator of internal coherence? Quinn nodded. Exactly. Just because something looks irrational doesn't mean it is. You have to understand what it means to the person feeling it. Janu tapped the mic gently. This aligns with our findings. Human behavior prioritizes emotional continuity over external logic. Quinn looked out at the committee. We're not broken just because we don't make sense on paper. We're just complicated. There was a pause, and then Dr. Ellery leaned forward. Mr. Wallace, would you say emotional contradiction strengthens or weakens collective understanding? It depends, he said. If you ignore it, it gets in the way. If you talk about it, it connects people. Dr. Saval murmured something to one of the GBI delegates, who nodded. After the presentation, the 3 of them stepped outside onto the walkway behind the building. The breeze was cool but not sharp, and the sky was overcast in a way that made colors look richer. Karel was holding a small data slate, tapping out notes with one finger. Janu folded his arms. The committee expressed approval. I noticed, Quinn said. No one tried to correct me. They applauded, Karel added. Politely. But yeah. Janu turned to him. You were relieved. Yeah. I didn't want to screw it up. I mean, I'm not a scientist. I'm just a guy who cried at a movie. Karel looked at him. You provided data beyond measurement. That is valuable. Quinn smiled. Thanks. They walked in silence for a while, passing the sculpture garden. A few student groups were lounging on the grass, some with instruments, others just talking. The occasional gust of wind sent leaves skittering across the path. Janu paused at a bench and sat down. I have considered your earlier statement, he said, about emotions connecting people. Quinn sat beside him. Yeah? When I experienced longing in the simulation, I disliked it. But now I feel curious. That's good. Curiosity's where empathy starts. Karel remained standing. I still find the concept of crying during joy disorienting, but I accept that it serves a function. You don't have to cry to understand it, Quinn said. Just knowing what it means to someone else is enough. Carl nodded once. A few minutes passed, quiet except for the rustling trees and distant chatter. Then Janu pulled a folded sheet from his bag. I created something. Based on our conversations. He handed it to Quinn. It was a drawing, simple, done in careful lines. It showed 3 figures standing beneath a stylized sky, one with a sling, one with antennae, one tall and narrow. Around them were swirling lines that didn't look like wind or rain but something in between. It's us. Yes, Janu said. And the shared space between perception. Karel added, it is meant to be displayed in our shared quarters. Quinn looked at the drawing again. I'd hang that. They stood and began walking back toward the shuttle dock. The day was starting to warm, the clouds thinning. Behind them, the campus buzzed along, oblivious to the quiet milestone they just passed. Quinn flexed his fingers gently inside the sling. The bone would heal. The awkwardness would pass. But the understanding, that was the part worth keeping.